Nobody respected the female CEO at dinner, but the waitress's Japanese left them speechless. The dinner was supposed to be a celebration of power. Executives, politicians, and investors gathered under glittering chandeliers. Yet at one table, a woman sat quietly, her presence almost erased. She was a CEO, richer than most in the room, yet treated as if she didn't belong. Whispers surrounded her, conversations carried on without her, respect withheld like a secret code she wasn't given. But then, when it seemed she would leave, unnoticed, a voice rose from the shadows, not from another guest, but from a waitress. And with flawless Japanese, she shattered the silence and turned the entire evening upside down. The event took place in a grand Tokyo ballroom, where tradition and modern wealth mingled under gold light. It was more than a dinner. It was a gathering, where alliances were forged, where reputations were polished, and where influence was displayed like fine jewelry. At the center table sat a woman who had built her empire from the ground up, a self-made billionaire CEO. She was one of the few women in the room, and certainly one of the few who had reached the heights she had. Yet wealth and achievement did little to shield her from the unspoken hierarchy that dictated the night. Around her, the conversation flowed entirely in Japanese. Business plans, jokes, subtle cultural references, all of it swirled past her, locking her out of the exchange. She nodded politely, forcing composure, but each passing minute deepened her isolation. The other guests treated her as if she were ornamental, a symbol of progress to display, but not appear to engage. Meanwhile, servers glided silently between tables. One of them, a young black waitress, carried herself with quiet precision. She was invisible to most, just another uniform ensuring the evening ran smoothly. Yet her eyes noticed everything. She saw the woman's forced smile, the subtle smirks from men who thrived on her exclusion, the way silence became its own form of dismissal. The stage was set. One woman ignored because of her gender and foreignness, another dismissed because of her race and role. Neither expected to cross paths that night, but fate was already moving. As courses were served, the imbalance became impossible to ignore. The CEO's fortune could buy her a seat, but it couldn't buy her respect. Each toast, each burst of laughter in Japanese was a reminder that she was on the outside looking in. Some at the table exchanged knowing glances, proud of their ability to leave her stranded in silence. The black waitress, weaving through the room with practiced grace, recognized the dynamic instantly. She had lived it herself, spaces where her worth was questioned, where people decided her story before she ever spoke. It wasn't just about language, it was about power. Who was allowed to speak? Who was expected to listen? And who was erased entirely? The CEO remained poised, her years of boardroom battles teaching her not to let cracks show. Yet inside, there was a weight she couldn't shake. She had clawed her way past barriers meant to keep her out, but here she was again, diminished not by failure, but by prejudice disguised as culture. The waitress placed down dishes, refilled glasses, and all the while, her ears caught every word. She wasn't just fluent. She understood the nuances, the layers of meaning in the jokes, and the subtle digs made at the CEO's expense. Each one fueled a quiet storm within her. When the chairman rose for the evening's grand toast, his speech in Japanese drew applause and cheers. The CEO clapped politely, masking her confusion, while others smirked knowingly. The room buzzed with self-satisfaction, until the waitress set down her tray, lifted her head, and spoke. Her Japanese was flawless, clear, elegant, and commanding. She translated the toast word for word, her voice carrying over the clink of glasses. The effect was immediate. Conversations halted. Forks froze midair, heads turned toward her, their expressions a mix of shock and disbelief. A woman they had written off as invisible had just stolen the room. The room's hierarchy collapsed in a single moment. The executives who had ignored the CEO stared at the waitress as if she had broken an unspoken law. Their illusion of control, built on language, culture, and exclusion, was shattered. The CEO's eyes widened, not just at the translation, but at the courage it took to speak. In that instant, she wasn't alone anymore. Someone had acknowledged her, seen her, and bridged the divide that others had used to isolate her. The waitress stood steady, her uniform crisp, her voice unwavering. She wasn't apologetic or timid. She carried herself with the authority of someone who had finally been heard. And in doing so, she revealed a truth everyone else wanted hidden, that the silence surrounding the CEO had never been accidental. It was intentional. It was exclusion. The executives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, suddenly aware of how exposed they were. Their unspoken prejudice had been dragged into the light by the very person they considered least significant in the room. The dinner continued, but the mood was forever changed. Those who had excluded the CEO now scrambled to engage her, their smiles forced, their gestures clumsy. But the damage was already done. They had revealed themselves, and it had taken a waitress to expose them. The CEO left the event with more than new contacts. She left with a renewed fire, a reminder that her struggle wasn't hers alone. The courage of a woman who was supposed to be invisible had given her strength, and with it, a powerful story she would never forget. For the waitress, it was just another night on the job, but one she would carry within her forever. Her voice had carried weight in a room designed to silence her, and in that moment, she claimed power none of them could strip away. Racism and prejudice don't always shout. Sometimes, they whisper through silence, through exclusion, through a smile that hides a barrier. But when someone dares to break that silence, the truth becomes undeniable. So ask yourself, when you see someone being silenced, will you remain part of the silence, or will you be the voice that changes everything? And if this story moved you, let your voice be heard. By liking this video, subscribing for more stories that matter, and sharing it so others remember that silence can always be broken.